Hello again, I'm Justin.
And I'm Paige.
And we are
Being Adventurous.
Before we get started, as always, click like, if you like, subscribe, click notification, tell all your friends.
And how many subscribers do we have now?
We surpassed the 50 subscriber mark.
Yes!
So we're at 52, so thank you everyone for clicking subscribe. And I don't know what our next goal is going to be, but we'll play it by ear. But we thank everyone so far, and we appreciate your trust in us and helping us along with this journey.
Thanks.
So this episode is going to cover another topic that we wanted to discuss as part of our recently announced EV ownership and planning checklist. And this really revolves around understanding the financial situation and things like that when it comes to ultimately deciding which vehicle is going to be right for you.
Yeah, it's affordable.
Exactly, it's affordable. So at the end of the day, this is a major purchase, right? And we should always be treating it as such. Thus, for us, we try to break down the components as thoroughly as possible so we have the most complete, up-to-date picture of what our financial situation is.
Yeah.
Right? For us, better to have too much detail versus too little detail. Right? Better safe than sorry. So for us, what we'd want to do is we always recommend do a personal financial analysis or budget check just to see where you're at today from that perspective, so you have the best possible picture of your financial situation and capabilities. Because I think that's going to be the important thing: is what are your capabilities, not just today, but projecting in the future. So the first thing that you would want that we think makes sense when you're looking at you're going to purchase a vehicle is identifying those components. So the first component is the down payment. So we think it's important to give thought as to what is going to be that down payment amount that you can afford. Now, whether that be cash from your bank account, or whether it be via your vehicle trade-in.
Right.
Those are the two typical common ones. And of course, yes, manufacturers and dealers could have additional incentives, but for now, let's leave them out.
Okay.
Right.
Makes sense.
To simplify.
That's fair. That's fair.
The next part is understanding how the state and federal EV incentives work. So definitely consult a financial professional if needed, but also refer to our video on that topic, the truth behind the tax credits.
Yes.
The EV incentives. It's an important episode. It goes into great detail, both from a federal perspective and a state perspective. Once you do that, really the next thing that we did on our checklist was understanding our credit score.
Yeah.
Right, which is important. A lot of people sometimes don't keep track of it, or don't really dig into the details of how it's going to impact your purchase. So for us is, we use, we try to keep track of them all. So for me, I have the Experian app on my phone, and they offer
Credit Karma.
They offer the Experian score for free. There are sites like Credit Karma that do similar. Also, credit cards typically will give you they'll tell you your credit score for free.
I think that's big right now. Most of them.
That's very big.
Yeah.
And they typically will identify the source that they use for that credit score. So in theory, and plus the government allows you to do one free credit report.
Credit.report.com, I think is what it is.
You get one per year for free, and that'll give you a complete report, not just your scores. So all those things totaled up, you will have a complete scoring outlook for yourself,
right,
that then you can use in further steps that we're going to cover. But at least that'll give you the full understanding of where your credit stands today.
And a lot of those sites will give you advice on how to increase your credit score.
Correct.
Here, what can I do to raise my score? And paying down some of your credit cards, your
your credit to debt ratio, income to debt ratio, and things like that.
Income to debt ratio.
Ultimately, by all means, consult a financial professional if needed. There's lots of things you can do. Just as a reference, when we were purchasing our home, we consulted a financial professional in order to get the boost in our credit score to give us the best possible rate when it came to a mortgage. So.
Right.
They are definitely useful. The next thing you would want to do is think about if you're going to go down the finance route, how you're going to finance, right? So for us, we recommend, checking with your banking institution, find out like what their rate card is. Because a lot of times these banking institutions will have some sort of rate card that says if your credit score is X, this is your rate. Mm-hmm. If it's Y, this is your rate, and Z, this rate, and so on. And they'll also have not just the rate, but they also have different rates potentially depending on the term of the loan. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely one option that's recommended.
The interesting thing that we found when we were researching this was asking, should we apply individually or apply together? And we were told at this particular one that we were checking out, well, you want to apply together because they're going to use both of your income as a basis for you being able to repay the loan, but they're going to take the score, the higher of the two. So
there's no downside.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So you really, if you're trying to increase the score, maybe focus on one that can increase the score the highest, the fastest, and that way that person's going to get the higher score.
And which, on that point, the bank should be able to tell you which agency it uses for its credit score check, so that way you can ultimately focus on that one, because a lot of times the scores are not necessarily going to be the same from agency to agency.
And sometimes they're drastically different.
I remember back when I bought my Jetta Cup Edition, two of my scores were drastically different, positively, thankfully, than one of the scores for some reason. And that initially was causing issues with the rate that I was going to be given, but once that was corrected via a conversation between the dealer and the it was actually Volkswagen Finance, it got resolved and it was fantastic, 0%, all that kind of good stuff. So you just never know. Better safe than sorry, and get that information. Mm-hmm. The next thing you want to do is start looking at each of the manufacturing sites and dealers specifically, potentially, to find out what offers that they have. Now, a lot of times, and we found this even when I was looking at the RS, a lot of times manufacturers will have offers for more of the general vehicles, but the ones that are more specialized or special edition, they typically don't apply. And that has happened in the past for EVs or even for plug-in hybrids. Mm-hmm. So definitely do that due diligence, because there are some that do apply to EVs as well. I believe when I was looking at the Audi site, Audi had offers that would be applicable to the e-tron, for example.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, depending on the type of company that you work for, they may have incentive programs through the company. I know Sam's Club offers incentives for certain cars. So it's definitely worth looking down those avenues to see if you're able to get any kind of an additional information or any additional incentives.
Well, that is very useful, because there are sometimes where companies will have, especially large companies, have special deals directly with the manufacturer that would give you a discount on the purchase price of the vehicle itself.
Mm-hmm. Like employee pricing.
Pricing, exactly. So definitely look for those as well. But that usually is something you check with your employer versus checking with the manufacturer themselves. And then make sure you also identify which offers are applicable to purchase versus which offers are applicable to leasing. Or in the Ford Mustang Mach-E case, they created an additional plan specific and targeted at the Mach-E itself. So you check and see if other manufacturers have similar programs. So that was the Ford Options Plan, which is basically a hybrid of a purchase and a lease. So that's good.
It's like a balloon mortgage.
Yeah, it's basically similar to a lease, but you own it versus the manufacturer owning it. So it's a very good option. The other thing you need to think about, if you're going to be trading in a vehicle, for example, you want to understand, if you owe any money left on it, you want to check with that financial institution to find out how much you owe left on it. What's the buyout amount? And then you also want to cross-reference that with, a site potentially like Kelley Blue Book, something that can give you a realistic trade-in value. Now, nowadays, I don't know how good Kelly Blue Book is at reflecting that versus trying to find an average on CarMax or something like that.
Right.
But at least it'll put you in the ballpark as to what to expect the dealer to offer you for the car. So that way you can at least get an idea on what that difference is, because that may be an amount you're comfortable with from a down payment perspective. You may want less from a down payment perspective, but at least you'll have that number in mind in your back pocket when you go in to start negotiating.
Yeah.
The
I
price.
think CarMax now gives you 72 hours or something.
Well, the good thing about CarMax is sometimes their quotes can be used with the manufacturer, because when we were talking to Tesla, they were saying that Tesla accepts CarMax quotes, but it's within a certain time period, like you were saying. So that's definitely a useful exercise. Well, to get CarMax to do an appraisal,
right?
Not just going to the site and trying to figure out the price that people are asking for. The other thing you might want to do is check out with your insurance company to see.
We have done this already,
right?
And find out if there's going to be any higher premiums for an electric vehicle,
or potentially lower ones.
Or yes, if there's any incentives.
Exactly.
I think when we checked, both cars that we were looking into are not currently in their car list. So they kind of modeled the EV6 after the Niro, and they do have a Hyundai Ioniq, and so they kind of just used that. So their estimate was it was going to increase our premiums by about $10 a month.
Yeah, so it may end up being negligible, but it may not, depending on what you have versus what you're getting. Better safe than sorry. Don't want to be caught off by surprise.
Yeah.
You just never know. Especially if you're trying to push your financial limits to get a next step up in vehicle, or something that you really want, versus something that you will settle with because of your financial challenges or whatever. So that's good. One thing that we didn't do yet, and I don't know how in depth we're going to go down this path. I know the manufacturers kind of do it, where they will tell you what's the estimated fuel savings. You're more than welcome to go through that process, and we will have a good idea of that potentially once Paige finishes up on her route planning and range anxiety based episode. So keep an eye out for that. But at least if you go through a minimal process of understanding how much mileage you go through in a typical week now, versus checking with your energy company to find out what their off-peak rates are, and maybe doing a rough calculation as to what it's going to take to charge versus what you're spending on gas, to give you, or fuel for that matter, just to give you a rough idea on how much you're going to be saving per week or per month. If you want to go to that depth, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult in our case because I buy gas every 6 weeks to 3 months.
Because she plugs in at work on a daily basis.
Yeah. So it's really difficult for me to know how much I'm spending. I have been tracking it on my calendar this year. Every time I fill up with gas, I put it down so I know exactly when I filled up, and it's usually like $22 for me to fill up with gas. But it's like,
for mine, I could probably estimate easier.
Sure.
Because I know how much money I'm spending on gas, and then I would just have to identify what reference kilowatt per mile or miles per kilowatt that a particular vehicle, is rated at, to do that sort of cross calculations. Or sometimes they'll do it like the EPA, they'll do like a miles per gallon equivalent, and then I can use that along with the off-peak charging rate to get a general idea of what it might, if I'm going to do the same mileage, what it's going to take if I'm paying for all the charging. Again, a rough amount, but at least I have a better chance of having something a little bit more.
Sure. And I think as far as the kilowatt charge, I don't know how it is where you live, but in Texas we have competitive energy companies, and so in our case we contract with a company and we pay a base rate every month up to a certain amount of kilowatts. So I don't know how much us charging from our home is going to increase that. I think it might be a lesson where I don't charge my car for a week, and I charge it here at home to see how it increases my energy usage throughout that week, that might be a good lesson for us to try. But if you're somewhere where you're paying, 13, 14, 15 cents a kilowatt, then maybe that's not, maybe you need to look at what their off-peak time is and stuff like that.
And then, of course, there's the whole other conversation of, getting solar installed and having solar panels to help, do the charging for free effectively, even though you're paying for the solar panels. So that's a whole separate discussion that we're not going to get into. But for us, it's like going through all this kind of checklist, step by step. For us, it really helped put perspective on where we're at, what our financial capabilities are, versus just ad hocing it.
Yeah.
I think for peace of mind, especially, it's been a very useful exercise for us. And it has helped us determine what our upper range is as well.
Right.
So there will be no e-tron RS GT in my future.
No. But we were saying that you can't just say, okay, well, I'm making this much of a monthly payment, and if I buy a car that's $59,000 and I have an interest rate of this much and I multiply it out over this many months, it's going to increase my payment by this much. But you have to add in all those other factors too.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when a lot of these things are affecting the finance rate if you're financing, or even if you're leasing, right? Your credit score affects a lot of things. The term affects a lot of things. There's just so many factors that should be accounted for versus us just doing a generic calculation saying, well, this is what I'm paying now. And then a very broad, rough calculation is just, for us, it wasn't enough detail to give us that peace of mind. So for me, you know what? That covers the points I wanted to cover. If we've missed anything, please put it in the comments. We would love to make sure that we add it to the conversation.
And I hope you're finding this helpful, because we found it helpful for us to make sure that we are going through this methodically and making the best decision.
Yes, absolutely. So for now,
thank you for being adventurous with us.
And we will see you down the road. Take care and stay safe.
Like, subscribe.
Oh, that's right. Click like if you like, subscribe, click the notification button, tell all your friends.
We'll get it someday.
We'll get it someday.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.